The Zodiac Killer, one of the most elusive serial killers in modern American history. The mystery male killer murdered at least 5 people, but may have been behind the deaths of up to 37. Despite no arrests, the California Department of Justice has maintained an open case file on the Zodiac murders since 1969. So, what if 50 years later, the killer was finally found? Hello and welcome back to Life's Biggest Questions, the channel that looks to answer all kinds of queries from science to history, pop culture, movie culture, fantasy, fiction. What happens and what ifs? I'm your host Rebecca Felgate, and today I'm asking, what if the Zodiac Killer was caught? Before we jump into this video, I want to ask you guys if you think the case of the Zodiac Killer will ever be solved. Do you have any thoughts on who may have done it? Let me know in the comments section down below. Also, please do leave a thumbs up on this video and share it with a friend who loves a crime doc. Be sure to check out the links in the description box to the creative team who went into making this video. Also, do stick around to the end where I'll be reading out comments from a recent Life's Biggest Questions video. So, the Zodiac Killer is the name given to a serial killer who operated in Northern California with 7 confirmed victims between 1968 and 1969, 2 of which survived, although they claim to have killed 37 people in letters sent to newspapers. Victims were 17-year-old David Arthur Faraday and 16-year-old Betty Lou Jensen, who were shot and killed on December 20th in 1968 in Benicia. Then came 19-year-old Michael Reno Mago and 22-year-old Darlene Elizabeth Ferrin, who was shot on the 4th of July in 1969. Michael luckily survived the attack at Blue Rock Springs Mountain Park. 20-year-old Brian Calvin Hartnell and 22-year-old Cecilia Ann Shepard were stabbed in Lake Berryessa in Napa County, with Brian surviving the 1969 attack. Also in 1969, 29-year-old Paul Lee Stine was shot and killed in the Presidio Heights neighborhood of San Francisco. The killer is also suspected to have been behind the killings of 4 more stab and gunshot victims, and possibly also the Santa Rosa hitchhiker murders. The Zodiac Killer left a series of 4 ciphers, only one of which has been deciphered. They also wrote letters to the Bay Area press and dropped in phone calls to the police. They weren't the one who coined the name the Zodiac Killer either, that was the press responding to a symbol left at the end of letters and ciphers. Nonetheless, the killer somehow managed to evade the police and has still evaded them to this day, which in some ways is an absolute kicker, as had the killer placed a call in this day and age, they would have been able to have been traced in seconds. Similarly, DNA evidence would have narrowed down the search dramatically. Leaving survivors means that police roughly have an idea of what the killer looked like in the late 1960s, although they could look very different today, that is if they're still alive. Back then, this sketch was created, and both victims agreed that the man was heavy set, a white male in his mid-30s to mid-40s with glasses and reddish blonde hair. So what if the Zodiac Killer was caught? Well, that would mean a breakthrough in the case so far. Perhaps the remaining 3 ciphers are cracked, which leads to new evidence, or perhaps police are finally able to get a DNA match. Either way, if the killer was caught, well, they would likely be very, very old. Last year, the Golden State Killer was apprehended. Now, the Golden State Killer was a serial killer and rapist who operated in California in the 1970s and 80s, leaving a similar cold case. But DNA evidence was recently put into the website GEDmatch, a genealogy website where former police officer Joseph DeAngelo was caught. The man is 72 years old and was prolific around 10 years after the Zodiac Killer's trail went cold. DeAngelo was in his early to mid-20s when he started killing, therefore it isn't too much of a stretch to assume that the Zodiac Killer is around 10 or more years older, unless he started really, really young, but that would not fit the descriptions. It is likely that the Zodiac Killer is in their 80s or perhaps 90s, especially if they were in their mid-30s to 40s like their victims suspected. It is possible that the Zodiac Killer could be dead now. Assuming that they're not though, and assuming that they're caught, like DeAngelo, they would spend the rest of their life behind bars. It would get a lot of media attention. Now, California doesn't have the death penalty, but it is likely that the old inmate would die before a state execution. Hopefully, with the killer apprehended despite his old age, the families of the victims could find peace and he could provide clarification on exactly how many people he killed. If any victims were unidentified, then they could finally be laid to rest. Amongst the press coverage, America will finally have an answer to a question that has been plaguing them for 5 decades. But wait, If the Zodiac Killer hasn't been caught, then maybe there isn't a killer to be caught. A lot of people have speculated that the murders are unrelated, and that the whole media persona, the person or perhaps people who contacted the papers and police, were sycophants, people obsessed with the killings. Some say the first cipher was real, yet the last 3 were copies. Some say that the symbol at the end of the letters and ciphers was always changing, and this is evidence of an inconsistency. Also, the murders were somewhat inconsistent too. Some people were shot, some were stabbed. Perhaps the Zodiac Killer was actually a series of murderers in on it together, or perhaps they're all totally unrelated, drawn together by a lover of the limelight. Who knows? Certainly not the police at this stage. I for one absolutely hope that time will tell here, but perhaps it won't. Thankfully, as we move forward, we are decreasing the amount of unsolved murders with enhanced technology and analysis, and better handling of evidence, so hopefully a cold case like this just won't come around again. So guys, who do you think the Zodiac Killer was? Do you think they were just one person? Do you think that we will ever solve the case? Let me know in the comment section down below. Also, while you're down there, please don't forget to leave a thumbs up on this video and share it with a friend that loves a good crime doc. Before I get out of here, I just want to read some comments from our similar video, What If Ted Bundy Was Still Alive? Now the immortal super being said, what if Jack the Ripper fought the Zodiac Killer? No guns. Well, the Zodiac Killer did love a gun, but I don't know, knives? Knives out everywhere? Maybe we shouldn't be fighting off historical murderers though. I don't know, it just seems a little bit too real. Rico S said, what if Alex Jones was the Emperor in Star Wars? Wait, wasn't he? Dominic Scott said, I love this channel, I really wish they would see my comments though. I see you, Dominic. Hello. Mr. Lammy said, you teach me more than school. That's funny, but hopefully school can teach you a bit and I can teach you a bit more, and together, well, we can conquer the universe. Or something. Anyway guys, thank you for watching this video. I'm your host Rebecca Felgate. I will catch you next time, but until then, do stay curious, stay alert, and never ever stop questioning.